Welcome everyone, this is your math tutor Naresh. In this video we're going to learn how to remove brackets, and actually we're going to have brackets within brackets. In the previous tutorial we learned how to remove brackets, collect like terms, simplify, but in this tutorial we're going to see brackets within brackets. So how do we simplify? Alright, so when can we have brackets within brackets? So an example would be if I say, let's say we have an unknown number x, and let's say we add 5 to this number. So how do we write that mathematically? So that expression would be x plus 5. So now if I say, let's triple this. So that was the first thing we did, and now we're saying triple that result. So triple this expression. So how do we triple this? We will say 3 times x plus 5. So that's how that expression is. And now we can say, let's add 7 to the result. So now we say add 7 to this result. So when we add 7 to this result, the expression would look something like this. So 3 times x plus 5, and now we're adding 7. And now we can go one more step. Now we can say, let's actually double the result. So whatever result we got here in the previous step, double it. So when I double it, I want to multiply this result by 2. Now what if I just wrote 2 in front 2 times? Now that would be incorrect. So what's the proper way? When I double it, the entire result in this step will double, right? Not just the 3. So to double this result, I would say 2 times, so yes, you're correct, but this time I'm actually going to use a square bracket. So it's this result that I want to double, so I will put that result 3 times x plus 5 plus 7, and now I will close the square bracket. What the square bracket does is it allows me to keep track of my operations. So what is the operation here, the very last one? We're doubling this result that we got in the previous step. So 2 is now being multiplied with this 3, with this bracket, and with that term. So 2 is being multiplied with everything that's inside the square brackets, and that is the proper way to double this result, right? To double this expression, this is how you write it. Now if I were to write, let's say 2 times 3 times x plus 5 plus 7, remember this I copied from here, right? And somebody might say, well, if you just put 2 in front, you're doubling it, but you're not, because 2 then only gets multiplied with the 3, becomes 6, then that 6 will multiply with the x and the 5, but the 7 is left out, right? So we haven't applied a factor of 2 to the 7, and to do that correctly we need to make use of square brackets. Alright, so what I did was I came up with a bunch of, I gave you a bunch of information one step at a time, and we translated that into mathematical expression, and then what we ended up with was brackets within brackets. Okay, so I'm going to erase this part. So now I'm going to write this on top, and then we'll work our way through, simplify that. Okay, so I'm going to copy. So now the question would be simplified. 2 times 3 times x plus 5, and then plus 7. Okay, so that's the question. 3 times x plus 5 plus 7. Okay. So now when we have brackets within brackets, the rule is that we work with the innermost brackets first. So in other words, we work from the inside out. So when we have this, so what that means is I don't want to multiply 2 out at my first step, right? So we'll leave that till last. So first we'll work from the innermost bracket, which is this. So we work from inside out. So we work with this bracket, then we'll take care of this multiple of 3, and then we'll take care of the addition. So we'll have everything simplified within the square brackets, and then all we have to do is double that result, multiply by 2. Alright? So when you are ready to simplify, so when we go from the question and we write our first step, we need an equal sign. Alright? So copy a factor of 2 as is. Now let's multiply the 3 with the parentheses. So 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 5 is 15. So we've removed this bracket, the inner bracket. Now copy the 7, so that's plus 7. Notice this 7 does not get multiplied by 3 because we have an addition right here, right? So 3 multiple of 3 applies to the terms in these parentheses, applies to the x and the 5, but not to the 7. 7 is an independent term, right? Okay, so now at the next step, you still need your equal sign. So factor of 2, copy as is. Collect like terms inside the square brackets. So we only have one x term, so 3x, and we have 2 constants, so combine them. 15 plus 7. 15 plus 7 is 22. So now we are ready to remove the square brackets. So the last step is multiply 2 with both terms inside the square bracket. So we still need an equal sign. 2 times 3x is 6x. Then 2 times 22 is 44. So that's the answer. So this is how we simplify brackets within brackets. So it's not all that complicated. It's just a continuation of the previous tutorial. In the previous tutorial, we just had parentheses, we just had brackets, but we didn't have brackets within brackets. But does it change anything? Not really, because the concept is still the same, everything is still the same, it's just now we have to work from the inside out. Alright, so now we'll do some more examples. So there is really nothing else to teach on removing brackets or dealing with brackets within brackets. The only thing you need to do is practice. You need to practice a lot of questions, and I'm going to practice with you so that you get the hang of it. And the more practice you do, the faster you'll become, the better you'll become, and you'll become comfortable with doing these operations. So let's look at a number of examples. So example 1. So the question again would say simplify. So it's not simplify. So the question is not going to tell you to remove brackets. So that's something you have to figure out on your own, that in order to simplify, I need to remove brackets, I need to work with my operations, you know, multiplication, division, subtraction, addition, whatever the case may be. So that's something you have to figure out. The question would simply say simplify. Alright, so number 1, so we have a positive square bracket 2 times negative 3x plus 5 in the brackets, then minus 2x. Okay, so simplify, so what does that mean, right? So that means I can remove brackets, collect like terms, and then really compress my answer to perhaps 1 or 2 terms, or whatever it works out to be, whatever number of terms. So now, do I really need that plus? No, I don't. It's basically 1 on the outside, so I don't need that 1. right? So I can go directly and multiply the 2 with the parentheses. So equal sign. So 2 times negative 3x, so that's negative 6x. 2 times 5 is plus 10. Copy the last term, minus 2x. And I'll say it again, this 2 is a factor of this, parentheses. Factor of 2, this 2 here, does not get multiplied with this term, because this term is independent, because it is separated from the first term inside the square brackets by subtraction. Point noted. So now we have removed brackets, and now we collect like terms. So we have an x term, another x term, negative 6 and negative 2. They add to give us negative 8, so negative 8x. And then the constant term, that's plus 10, that stays as is. So here we had a question, we had, this lengthy question, it basically reduces down to 2 terms. So we've simplified it. Okay. Now, let's do another example. And what you should do is you need to practice on your own. So maybe what you want to do is write down the question. So example 2, negative square bracket, so 3 times a minus 1 minus 12. So maybe write down the question and do it, and then watch it together or compare your answer. Okay, so in this case we have a negative 1. Now, can I ignore negative 1? I can't. This negative 1, the factor of negative 1, being multiplied with what's inside the square brackets is very important. In the example number 1, we had a positive in front, positive 1, so when we multiply 1 with anything, we get that anything. But now with this negative, whatever is inside the square brackets, when it comes out, the signs will change of each and every term, right? So that's why we can't ignore the negative. So we're going to copy the negative at every step of the way until we're ready to deal with it. So the first step is to work with the innermost bracket, which is a minus 1. Alright, so we copy the negative sign. Now multiply 3 with a and then the negative 1. So 3 times a is 3a. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. And then copy minus 12. So I'll say it once again. The 3 is not a factor, is not a multiple, or 3 is not being multiplied with this 12 here, right? The separation is the subtraction here. So this is a different term from this term. This is one term, this is another term. So to this term, there are 2 factors, the 3 and a minus 1, right? Okay, so I know I'm just saying it over and over. It's good. It's good to make that distinction, right? Alright, so we still need the negative sign. So we still need the equal, we still need the negative, and now let's simplify what's inside the square bracket. Now 3a, there aren't any other a terms, so we copy 3a. And now we have 2 constant terms. They're both negative, so we can add them up. Negative 3, negative 12, they add up to negative 15. So this is minus 15 here. And now we're ready to deal with this negative on the outside. This is a factor of negative 1. So negative 1 times 3a will give us negative 3a. Negative 1 times negative 15 will give us positive 15. So that's the answer. Or simply, we learned previously, when we have a factor of negative 1, when we remove brackets, whatever comes out, the sign will become the opposite. So positive 3a becomes negative 3a, negative 15 becomes positive 15. Alright, so I hope you got the same answer. And if not, then simply go back and see where you went wrong and correct yourself. The more mistakes you make while you're doing homework questions, the better it is for you, because it's your opportunity to train your mind to really teach yourself. And if you can teach yourself from by learning from the mistakes that you have made, you will become much better at math. And then when you do take the test and the exams and the midterm, you'll know that that's where you go wrong every time you do practice questions. So you'll take a step back and then you say, no, I got to do this part. I got to spend more time on it, take some extra time, but I want to do it correctly. Right? So that's the key. All right, so let's do another example. So as I do more examples, nothing really is different. We're just working with different numbers, different brackets, but the concept is the same. So, and why do I still want to do more questions? Because you need to practice a lot to build your foundation. So, number 3. So, positive 3 on the outside. Then we have, let's say, 4a minus 2 times x plus 1, close parentheses, close square bracket. Okay. So again, we want to work from inside out. So we'll copy the factor of positive 3 on the outside. And I'm actually going to take the positive out. I don't need that excessive sign. So copy 4a. And now let's multiply this out. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Okay, so now collect like terms. There aren't any like terms because this is an a term, this is an x term, and this is a constant. So now we're ready to multiply the 3 with each and every term that's inside the square brackets. So 3 times 4a is 12a. 3 times negative 2x is negative 6x. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. So that's the answer there. Alright, so now maybe we'll do 1 or 2 more examples and then I will wrap this session. So let's look at something like this. So negative 8. So I'm going to use curly brackets. A minus 1 minus a minus 1 plus 3 times negative 2a, and then close the curly brackets. Okay, so it looks different, it looks a little bit longer, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to work from the inside out, right? Work with the innermost brackets first. So let's start. So have your equal sign, copy the factor of negative 8, copy the curly bracket, and work our way out. So we can remove these brackets here, the parentheses here. So now we have parentheses here, here, and here. So we're going to remove brackets. This one, and this one, right? So there's a factor of 1 here. So 1 times a, it remains the same. 1 times this bracket remains the bracket. So a minus 1. And now this is a negative. So when I remove these parentheses, the signs are going to change. So negative 1 times a is negative a. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Alright. Now let's multiply this out to remove the third set of parentheses. 3 times negative 2a is negative 6a. And then close the curly bracket. So now you can see that we've removed the inner brackets. And now let's simplify, collect like terms. So when I collect like terms, there's a positive a and then there's a negative a. So those ones cancel each other out. So what am I left with? Negative 6a. So equals negative 8 in parentheses, in curly brackets. I'll have negative 6a. And then what about the constants? The constants, again, I have a negative 1 and a positive 1, so they add up to 0 or they cancel each other out. So all I really have inside is negative 6a. Close the bracket. And now I'm ready to multiply negative 8. So negative times negative is positive. 8 times 6 is 48. So times a. So the answer is 48a. So now you can see that we started with a lengthy question and it reduces down to one term, 48a. So this is where I'm going to wrap up this session. I hope you found the tutorial useful. If you did, please like or subscribe, and we will see each other in the next video, part 2, where we will do more practice questions, brackets within brackets. Once again, Thank you for watching.